Shalom, this is Mary Omni from the World Government House of King David, Holy Covenant Constitutional Enforcer. This is a Republic Notice. It's a beautiful fall day, 2013 in October in Alaska. Nice temperature, nice sun. The title of this Republic Notice is called, the description called Black Community Identifies a Slave-Trained People. In 2013, you still have a lot of blacks calling themselves the black community. They get their cues from the media. They're directly controlled. The media owns their brain, lock, stock, and barrel. If they calling themselves a community, that's the evidence that the media and the larger society own their brain, because the larger society has marginalized them as a community. They adopted this marginalization, and they are carrying it on well into now 13 years into the 21st century, which is really pretty sad. Now, it's sad when you think that 144 or 45 years ago, blacks was calling themselves a nation. So we had blacks way more advanced 145 years ago than blacks are now. 145 years ago, blacks knew themselves as a nation and a constitutional nation. And so I gotta take you back. You gotta go backwards in time 145 years to step forward now. You know, step backwards 145 years to come forward now, because your ancestors was way more advanced than you are now. You are repeating whatever the larger society calls you. You adopted lock, stock, and barrel. 145 years ago, blacks knew they was a nation. They became a nation in 1866. Because they gained contractual enforcement rights as a non-consenting nation in all territories, jurisdictions, and states. Okay? I mean, so, you know, back to the future. Let's go back to the future and see if you can have just 10% intelligence of people who knew they were a nation 145 years ago. Because there's hardly nobody who comes to America call themselves a community unless it's the gay community. And they call themselves a community because they know they don't have one constitutional amendment on their gay behaviors. Not one. You know, they use blacks' mule. Now, blacks have the U.S. corporate mule as their inheritance, because President Lincoln promised them a mule would go with their 40 acres. So they got the 15 U.S. Corporation 15 ABC as their mule to harness those who had no constitutionality or that wanted to trample the constitutionality of blacks as a nation in the Constitution. Since 1868. They was put as a nation in a constitution in 1868 because they was a nation in 1866. And all this is prior to the U.S. corporate mule of 1871, government of Washington, D.C., which is the demarcation point. For blacks to know anyone who came after that is post the establishment of the Republic that established blacks as the real national and constitutional republic citizens. So when you say I pledge allegiance to the flag for the United States of the Republic for which it stands, you pledge allegiance to blacks. And that's why they cut out the Pledge of Allegiance in school. And that's why they're allowing Mexican flags to go up, any other flags to go up, or anybody who want to raise their flag, you know. See, we got to come along to the concept of back to the future. Back to the future, okay? You know, you was programmed to forget. It's not all your fault. So I'm going to say this up front, and I'm going to say it, but I don't want you to take it as you can lie in this as an excuse. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this for blacks and anyone who's listening to this. The Most High and His Son, King Yeshua, have blacks as the blameless, the non-consenters. They're not going to be blamed for nothing, okay? You know, not even their ignorance of today. You know, because the Most High and His Son, King Yeshua, looked out for His people and put them in the highest contract in the richest country on the planet. And this richest country on the planet is really rich and successful by these black constitutional citizens. They never given credit, especially black woman. She is never given credit as the unsung soldiers. You know, you want to talk about soldiers coming back from the Iraq War and, you know, Afghanistan and all this post-traumatic stress after they have 1 or 2 years. Well, black women have been on the front line for 500 years. 500 years, and no one wants her to have the pension of her own wealth constitutionalized. Black women have been on the battlefield 500 years without rest. No one wants her to have the pension of her own wealth, to get a pension from her own constitutional supreme contractual wealth now. But somebody on the battlefield 1 or 2 years, they want to say, oh, these soldiers, let's do this for these soldiers, let's do that for their soldiers. And, you know, well, ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? Isn't that what Sojourner Truth said, ain't I a woman? Meaning, I've been on this front line, okay? You know, you want to reward the men for 1 or 2 years, but you don't want to reward me as a woman for being on the front line for 500 years to ensure a God-sovereign country on this planet that the kingdom can build off of for God's sovereignty and the Savior and the redemption of the world. And then you want to marginalize me and call me a community? When a lot of times blacks don't even commune with each other. I mean, a lot of times they do because you manage to keep us, you know, what you call it, cold-lined in certain neighborhoods, so we all stay together. You know, you have your de facto ways of segregation and redlining and making sure one population moves out and when blacks move in to assure blacks just always be together no matter where they are, and not able to enjoy their wealth so that when the whites move out, all the money can move out that all the white senators and all the white governors been distributing for the last 100 years for the white privilege only outside of the Constitution. See, only the whites can be privileged to the black constitutional citizens' wealth that's contracted in the Constitution as the supreme contractors. Okay, so this is what the all-white senators and all-white governors it has been truly about for the last 100 years, birth of a new debt nation. Debt nation. See, the black constitutional citizens hold no debt. They God's sovereign. So the debt nation needed blacks' U.S. corporate mule to process their debt through. And so what happens is the U.S. corporate mule anus is the processor, and they come out in abomination of desolation contracts. And as abomination of desolation contracts, they pretend so much more intelligence than blacks. You know, they pretend that their debt governance is way superior than the black former captives and slaves. Because the black former captives and slaves were supposed to be the dumbest women and men on the planet. Yet, they the only God-sovereign contractors in the United States and in the world. And no matter how much fiat money you display and how much majority Satan rules, because Satan likes to flood and cover up. That's what he do. He flood, cover up. He flood with demons. He flood with two-legged demons. He flood with immigrants. He flood with lies. He flood with media propaganda. He flood with brain control. He floods. That's what he do. He floods, and he thrives in the darkness because floods of people and demons and lies and falsehoods and lies in history books and trash in the Constitution and flooding the media propagation about blacks being a community is how Satan survives. He survives by numbers. He playing number games. So we're the supreme minority, which means we're 12 to 13, maybe 15% of the population, constitutionalized as a nation since 1868, when the Most High, King Yeshua, cut off the sacrifice and oblation and made us constitutional citizens by inheritance, because we're the set-aparts, we're non-consenters, which means no one is like us. We're the set-aparts. We inherit, we don't consent. You know, we didn't consent to come here. We're not volunteering easy slaves. They had to put chains on us and they had to whip us because, you know, we're the unique ones. We're the unique ones. We're the true Jews. All the other non-unique ones voluntarily walk into slavery, lie in bed with global banksters. They're just like Esau, you know, immediate gratification for a bite or a trinket or a privilege. Okay? So where is me as an unsung hero of 500 years of on the front line of God's sovereignty? Why don't the Veterans Administration even want to give me part of any of my wealth as being a soldier that was written as 3/5? Just that 3/5 designation should entitle me to all kinds of veterans benefits, all kinds of Social Security, all kinds of pensions, all kinds of everything. Because 3/5 mean you were treated as lower, even though in the cosmic it has another meaning of the dark matter and the trifecta of the supreme black woman. Okay? Now that's what it means in the cosmic. But according to Babylon definition, I was lower, and that's the way they treated me, as lower. So if that identifies me as being lower or less than a person, then I don't have to prove my disability and I don't have to prove my soldiering, because you saying that you trampled me and you saying that you know that I had an incapacitation at the beginning. So why should blacks have to prove their incapacitation now? Now see, I'm all over the place. This was about blacks. Please stop calling yourself a community. It's a slave train terminology that Satan flooded in your brain and you adopted. Stop showing your brain has no critical thinking. And even if it don't have no critical thinking, it's damn well that you start pretending to do, because 145 years our ancestors knew we was a nation. So take your behind back to the future and always speak yourself as a nation, and bite your tongue when you say community, because you insult the blood of our people. This is Mary Omni from the House of King David. Shalom. This is Mary Omni from the House of King David. Shalom.